Well, good evening there to you, ladies and gentlemen. This is Scott, live from Scott Manning YouTube Sports Talk. I want to thank all of my loyal viewers for being with me here tonight. It is now time for the Scott Manning YouTube College Basketball Podcast Show. It's going to be a great show. We're going to be in for a great night. This is going to be a great show. I got a fantastic feeling this is going to be great. I probably might wind up being here for about 45 minutes to an hour. Last Friday night, I was here for over an hour, and I didn't plan on it. But it could happen again because I have a lot to talk about. If you look down at the information down below before the video, you see what I'm going to be talking about tonight, you'll see what I mean. It's now go time. We have a lot to talk about. I'm just going to go ahead and just jump right into it. Number 24, Iowa State faces number 20, Ole Miss tomorrow. That's a big high noon game. Both teams are coming off of losses. You know, Iowa State's coming off of a loss to Kansas 80-76 on Tuesday night. Ole Miss has got their doors blown off by Alabama. But let's think about this for a minute. Iowa State, they could still take the Big 12 away. I'll talk about that here in a little while. But anyway, this could be a very important game. This is part of the Big 12 SEC Challenge. Whichever conference wins the challenge, they're going to be sitting really, really pretty. Mario Shayak, he had 20 points in Iowa State's loss the other night. Jalen Horton-Tucker, 16 points. Taylor Horton-Tucker, he's been averaging 11.9 points per game, 5.3 rebounds per game. He shot 65% from the field. Mario Shayak, he's been averaging 19.8 points per game. That's about right for him. Michael Jacobson, he had 10 points, 11 rebounds. He had a double-double in that loss. He's been averaging 13.1 points per game and 6.4 rebounds per game. And he can shoot 58.9% from the field. That could be huge tomorrow. Keep that in mind. This game could be very interesting, but think about Ole Miss. Ole Miss, they're coming off of a very bad loss to Alabama. The football school, for crying out loud. The football school, the SEC, for crying out loud. Terrence Davis and Bree Tyree, combined, those two have been averaging 33 points per game. They got shut down to 19 in the loss to Alabama. What can you say? There's not much you can do about it. Bree and Tyree, think about it. Bree and Tyree, 17 points per game. He got held down to hardly anything. 17 points per game, 3.4 rebounds per game. He averages 3 assists per game. But he can shoot almost 50% from the field. That can be very important tomorrow. And at the free throw line, he's been averaging 83.1%. That could be huge. That could be very important. That's all there is to it. Terrence Davis, 15.8 points per game. He averages 5.9 rebounds per game, for crying out loud. He didn't have anything. He could shoot 49.5% from the field. So he can get the job done from the field. He may only shoot 72% at the free throw line, but he makes up for it by making 42% of his three balls from beyond the arc. That could be very important tomorrow in this contest. Now, if you look at the team numbers, this is fairly close. Now, Iowa State's been averaging 79 points per game. They had 76 in their loss against Kansas. Now, Ole Miss have been averaging 78 points per game. They got shut down to 53 against Alabama. That's something to think about. Now, this comes down to, from the field, Iowa State shoots 47.3%. Ole Miss 48.8%. At the free throw line, Iowa State shoots 71.7%. Ole Miss shoots 74.5%. From three-point land, they're very close. Both teams shoot 36% from three-point land. Iowa State 36.2%, Ole Miss 36.7%. So what needs to happen is, if Ole Miss wants to beat Iowa State, this game's got to be decided at the free throw line, because I'm going to tell you right now, from three-point land, Ole Miss does have a very slight advantage. It may not matter. And that's all there is to it. But from the field, Ole Miss does have an advantage. They have but the advantage goes to Ole Miss in this game tomorrow. That's all there is to it. Yes, Iowa State averages 79 points per game. That's about the only thing they got going for them. But this is going to be a very interesting contest tomorrow. And we started out right at 12 noon. The SEC Big 12 Challenge. This could be a game that could be decided in the closing seconds. We'll have to wait and see on that. We'll have to wait and see. We don't know. But the bottom line is, it's going to be a battle all the way to the end. I've got that feeling. Now, let's move on to the next game. The next game I want to talk about is number 12 Marquette versus Xavier. Marquette's coming off of a big win over DePaul, 79-69. Markus Howard, Sam Hauser, 42 points combined in that victory. And Sam Hauser, he's a great player, 15.2 points per game. He had 19 in that victory over DePaul. He averages 15.2 rebounds per game, 6.9 rebounds, 15.2 points per game, 6.9 rebounds per game. Let me back up there. And I'm going to tell you right now, Sam Hauser is a very dangerous man at the free throw line. 90.6% at the free throw line. He shoots 47% from the field. Look out. And 39.5% from three-point land. That could be very dangerous. Marquette coach Steve Wojciechowski said, I got the best player in the Big East. I got some of the best players in the Big East. I'm going to tell you right now, these guys really played hard all season long. If we can keep this up, we could possibly take the Big East regular season away from Villanova. And anything can happen there. Let's think about this for a minute. I'm not going to do Markus Howard's numbers because I'm going to say Markus Howard for a little later in the show. But all that boils down to is Marquette had a great win. Xavier is coming off of a bad loss to Providence, 64-62. Xavier coach Travis Steele said, we gave that game away, and that's all there is to it. Well, they did. Xavier turned the ball over 18 times against Providence. You can, and I've said this, and I've repeated it, and I've repeated it, and I repeated it. You cannot turn the ball over 15 to 20 times and expect to win. That's all there is to it. And I've said it before. Look, you can't turn the ball over 18 times. That's what they did wrong. That's what cost them. Paul Scruggs, he averages 13 points per game. He only had 14. That's about close to his average. But let's think about this a minute. Xavier's struggling right now. And everybody had them as a favorite to win the Big East crown. They're going in the wrong direction. Najee Marshall, 13.1 points per game. He hasn't been much to brag about. 7.3 rebounds per game. He does shoot almost 49.5% from the field, and he's a 73%. He averages 73% at the free throw line. Paul Scruggs, he's been shooting 50% from the field. He only had 14, but he shoots 80.8% at the free throw line and 44.6% from beyond the arc. And Quentin Gooden, 12.1 points per game, 5 assists per game. He leads the team in that category. He only shoots 69% from the free throw line. That's not very good. 37% from the field and only 30% from three-point land. Xavier's probably going to wind up going down tomorrow. And think about this too. Advantage in this game, Marquette. Marquette's been averaging 79 points per game. Xavier only 73. That's something to think about too. And from the team standpoint, the only hope that Marquette has of pulling off the upset is that this game is decided in the field and also in the paint. Xavier's got to get Marquette to score in the paint because that's their only hope. If this game is decided at the free throw line, give it to Marquette. 3-point line, give it to Marquette. But I'm going to tell you right now, Xavier, if they want to pull off the upset, this is what Xavier needs to do. Xavier, they got to stop Sam Hauser. They got to stop the Hauser threat, and they got to stop Markus Howard. And I'm going to talk about Markus Howard here a little later in the show. I'm going to save him for something else. But Paul Scruggs, he's got to score like maybe about 20 points if they have to have any shot. Najee Marshall, same thing. He's got to score about 20 to 25. And they got to stop Markus Howard, and they got to stop Sam Hauser and to stop the double threat of Marquette to have any shot of winning this game tomorrow. And I'm going to be honest with you. As Xavier coach Travis Steele said, I'm worried about Marquette. We're facing Marquette next. We're going to have our hands full. No kidding. You're going to be coming off of a bad loss to Providence. That loss to Providence may hurt you in the long run. Now, you may not realize it now, but it's going to hurt you in the end. And I'm also going to say this too. Marquette can stop Villanova to win the Big East regular season crown. And I'll come back to that later. But right now, Marquette's the favorite to win. The only hope for Xavier is that this game is decided from the field and also decided in the paint. And that's going to be very interesting to see how that game goes. The next game I want to talk about, ladies and gentlemen, number 23 Louisville against Pitt. Now, Louisville is coming off of a huge win over number 21 NC State on Thursday night, 84-77. Christian Cunningham, 17 points. Jordan Mawa, 13 points. Stephen Enoch, 10 points off the bench. Malik Williams, 14 points. That was huge. But let's think about this for a minute. Let's talk about Christian Cunningham. 17 points. He's only been averaging 10.4 points per game. However, he can shoot 49.5% from three-point land. And from the field, he shoots almost 51%. That is very impressive. Nobody's been talking about Christian Cunningham all season. He also leads the team with 4.2 assists per game. Jordan Mawa, he averages 18.5 points per game for Louisville, and he also leads the team with 8.1 rebounds per game. He can shoot 73.5% at the free throw line. If they need somebody to hit free throws at the end, he's the guy to do it. And he can also shoot 41.1% from three-point land. That is huge. That could be very important tomorrow. Louisville coach Chris Mack said after that game against NC State, well, we had our toughest test, but we got Pitt coming up tomorrow, and they can jump out of nowhere. And I know Pitt's coming off of a bad loss to Duke, so they're going to be playing mad. Well, Pitt may be playing mad. Pitt humiliated Duke. Duke humiliated Pitt on their court 79-64. Trey McGowan's 14 points. Jared Wilson-Frame 12 points. Xavier Johnson 12 points. The freshman backcourt didn't show me much of anything at all. I mean, think about it. Trey McGowan's 14 points. He averages 13.9 points per game. So that's about right for him. He does shoot 43.5% from the field, and he can also get it done at the free throw line by shooting 77.6%. Xavier Johnson, on the other hand, Xavier Johnson only had 12 points. He averages 16.6 points per game. He also leads the team with the most rebounds of 3.6 and the most assists of 4.4. He can shoot 82.9% at the free throw line. I would want him at the line in a deciding game. He shoots 46.7% from the field. That's huge. And also 40.3% from three-point land. But we haven't talked much about Jared Wilson-Frame. What about him? He had 12 points. He averages 11.3 points per game. 4.7 rebounds per game. That's huge too. And he can shoot 87.5% at the free throw line. So if they need so I would want these three guys at the line. Of all the three guys I want at the free throw line, I either want Frame or Johnson at the line to decide it. He also shoots 40.9% from the field, and I'm talking about Jared Wilson-Frame here. Now, Pitt coach Jeff Capel said after the game, I knew we were going to have our hands full. I knew Duke was not going to be in a pleasant mood after what happened to them against Syracuse. They're still playing angry. So now it's our turn to play mad. And we're going to take it out on Louisville, and we're going to do anything we can to win this game. And that's all there is to it. Now, everybody says advantage of Louisville. Now, Louisville's been averaging 80 points per game. And Louisville's all of a sudden become a threat to take away the ACC regular season crown. And I'll get to that here in a little while. Now, they also shoot 45.7% from the field. Now, Pitt, they're very close too, 44.3 for them. From the free throw line, advantage Louisville, 75.3% versus 72.6% at the free throw line for Pitt. From three-point land, Louisville shoots 35.5% from three-point land. The Pitt's 33.2. And also, too, Pitt's only been averaging 76 points per game. Now, Louisville's been averaging 80. What in the world can Pitt do to knock off Louisville? Here's what they need to do. They got to stop Christian Cunningham. They got to stop Jordan Mawa. They got to keep those two in check. Now, Louisville, they got to find a way to stop the freshman backcourt. And they're the most dangerous freshman backcourt in all of college basketball. And that's all there is to it, folks. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be very honest with you. That's not going to be easy to do. Because you know Pitt, Louisville, they can hit threes when they need to. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is going to be a very interesting game. and we're going to see how it goes. And the bottom line is, it's going to be this game may be worth the price of admission. And that's all there is to it. And I'm going to say this now. Could we have an upset here? We don't know. This game is tomorrow. And I'm going to tell you right now, Pitt needs a win if they want to get back into consideration for the NCAA tournament. All right. The next game I want to talk about. Syracuse versus Virginia Tech. Both teams are right in the heart of the ACC race. And Syracuse is coming off of a huge win Thursday night over Miami, 73-53. Elijah Hughes, 23 points. Tyus Battle, 10.6 rebounds, 9 assists. He was a big guy. He was a big reason why they won. And I'm going to talk about Tyus Battle a little later in the show. But Elijah Hughes and O'Shea Brissett, they could be huge factors too tomorrow. And this is an 8 o'clock game tomorrow night, as soon as another game gets finished. Now, I'm going to talk about that other game here in just a second. Now, for Syracuse, Elijah Hughes, the guy's been averaging almost 14.9 points per game, and he can shoot 72.5% at the free throw line. That could be very important. O'Shea Brissett, he's not that far behind either, 13.9 points per game, and he also averages 7.8 rebounds per game. He shoots, but the two things that concern me about him is 38.3% from the field and 68.1% at the free throw line. Those are the only things that worry me. Elijah Hughes, he can shoot 75.5% from the free throw line as well. That could be very important. That could be very important tonight in that game tomorrow night. And he shoots 44.2% from the field. That could be very important as well. Now for Virginia Tech, they're coming off of a bad loss to North Carolina, 103-82 the other night. And I mean, Ahmad Hill, 20 points. That was about the only thing they could brag about. Even if Virginia Tech even wants to brag about that. But I got 4 players on this watch list for Virginia Tech, and I haven't talked about Virginia Tech much because there hasn't been any reason to. Nico Alexander Walker. This guy averages 18.3 points per game, and he could shoot 54% from the field. That could be huge. And if they need somebody at the free throw line, I'd want him there because he shoots 78%. That is huge, and that could be huge in the long run. Kenny Blackshear Jr. All right. Yeah, that's right. Kenny Blackshear Jr. I had to kind of look down at my writing. My own writing's hard to read, so I apologize for that. Kenny Blackshear Jr. He averages 13.7 points per game, and he can also shoot 52.9% from the field. And he also leads the team with 6.4 rebounds per game. He could be a big factor tomorrow. Ahmed Hill, he may only average 13.2 points per game, but he could shoot 91.3% at the free throw line. I'd want him there at the line to win it as well. Justin Robinson, he only averages 13.1 points per game, but he could shoot 81.9% at the free throw line himself. And he leads the team with 5.4 assists per game. Syracuse, Virginia Tech, this is a game that's going to be interesting. Syracuse coach Jim Boeheim said after their victory against Miami, he said, "Bring on Virginia Tech. We're ready for them." Virginia Tech coach Buzz Williams said, "We got to play Syracuse. We're going to be playing angry because we came off of a humiliating loss to North Carolina. And the bottom line is we got a lot of work to do, and we can get the job done." This game tomorrow night is going to be well worth watching. And that's all there is to it, my friends. That's all there is to it. And everybody says that we have a lot to talk about. I mean, Jim Boeheim has already said, we're going to be ready for a battle tomorrow night. And the bottom line is, I don't care how we do it, when we do it, but we're going to get the job done. If we can knock off Virginia Tech, we can pick ourselves right into the middle. We're already in the middle of an ACC battle. Nobody's given us credit for anything. They've kept us down. It's time that we pick ourselves up and prove to them why we belong in the middle of this battle for the ACC. And that's all there is to it. Virginia Tech coach Buzz Williams said, if we can beat Syracuse, we can get ourselves right into the middle of this battle. It's not over yet, and nobody doesn't realize it. Bottom line. Okay, the last game I want to talk about. I had 5 games I want to talk about. This is the last one. Number 9, Kansas. Number 8, Kentucky. The big one. The 6 o'clock main event. This is the main event on Saturday, and it's got all the hype that lives up to it. Now, Kansas, Kentucky. Kansas is coming off of an 80-76 victory over Iowa State. Dedrick Lawson, 29 points, 15 rebounds. That was huge. And Dedrick Lawson, ever since Udaka Azubuike went out with an injury, Kansas has had some struggles. Coming off of a bad loss to West Virginia and barely squeaking by against Iowa State, that would worry me. But anyway, Kansas coach Bill Self said after this victory over Iowa State, we got our confidence back. We were back home, but now we got to face Kentucky as far as a part of the Big 12 SEC Challenge. It's going to be very interesting to see how these guys do, and that's all I can say. And I'm not saying anything else more at this time. Well, let's think about this a minute. You guys know about the 3 players on the watch list: Lawson, LaGerald Vick, and Devon Dotson. Now, Dedrick Lawson has been averaging 19.5 points per game and 10.9 rebounds per game. He has stepped up since Azubuike was announced that Azubuike's out for the season. But LaGerald Vick, he's done his part. 15 points per game, 47.7% from the field, and 45.7% from beyond the arc. Dedrick Lawson, he may only average 10.9 points per game, but he shoots 48.5% from the field and 41.7% from beyond the arc. That could be huge in this game tomorrow night. Now, as far as Kentucky goes, they're coming off of a big win. They're coming off of a win over Mississippi State. And Kentucky coach John Calipari said, I was just basically using this game as a warm-up because we know we got Kansas coming up. And that's all there was to it. And also note this too. I've got 4 players on the watch list for Kentucky. Sheldon Johnson. He averages 14.6 points per game, but he could shoot almost 51% from the field. That could be huge. Tyler Hero. He may only average 13.7 points per game, but he can shoot 90% from the free throw line. That is important. That could be big as well. Reed Travis. He averages 12.6 points per game and 6.7 rebounds per game. The only thing that worries me is he shoots 72% at the free throw line, but he really makes up for it by shooting 53% from the field. But P.J. Washington, hardly anybody's talked about him. 12.3 points per game. The only concern I have at the free throw line, 67.6%. However, he really makes up for it by shooting 52% from the field. That could be important in this game tomorrow night. And look out, and if you think about the numbers and the team numbers for these 2 teams, they're almost evenly matched, except for a couple of things. The free throw line, and I'll get to that in a minute. Now, Kansas, they've been averaging 78 points per game, and that could be huge tomorrow. Kentucky's been averaging 80 points per game. And if you look at the team numbers from the field, 48.1% for Kansas, 48.6% for Kentucky. Now, at the free throw line, this is what Kentucky needs to do. This game has got to be decided at the free throw line because Kentucky averages 75.1% at the free throw line. Kansas only averages 67.6%. And let's think about this for just a minute. If you look at the notes, and I look over my notes here, from three-point land, it's a dead heat. 35.6% for Kansas, 35.7% for Kentucky. So if this turns into a three-point barrage, you might want to be thinking about 100 points for both teams in this game tomorrow. This is a classic. This is going to be, I have a feeling this game is going to be an instant classic for all of the right reasons. Because these 2 teams are very evenly matched. Kansas, Kentucky, this game is going to be well worth the price of admission. And I'm going to tell you right now, despite the fact, here's the big question mark. How will Kansas do against a team like Kentucky without Udaka Azubuike in the lineup? How will they do? How will they fare? There's a big question mark. For Kentucky, John Calipari, his 4 guys, Washington, Travis, Hero, and Johnson, they're all ready to go tomorrow. And also, too, think about this in the Kentucky victory over Mississippi State. B.J. Washington, Tyler Hero, 39 points combined. That's very important. Those two, Tyler Hero and B.J. Washington, are going to have to step up. They're going to have to step up. Sheldon Johnson's got to step up, too. Because Kentucky's got to stop Dedrick Lawson. Dedrick Lawson and Gerald Vick. Those are going to be the two big threats tomorrow in this matchup. But I'm going to tell you right now, Kansas, Kentucky, that's going to be well worth the watching tomorrow night. That's all I'm going to say. All right. You know what, ladies and gentlemen? I was going to talk about, the Wooden Award, the Wooden Watch for the Wooden Award is really getting interesting. Everybody's thinking it's going to be Zion Williamson or R.J. Barrett of Duke. But I'm not going to talk about Zion Williamson and R.J. Barrett of Duke. I've got 5 players outside of Duke University that I think could take it. And you know what? Let's play up or down. Let's have a little fun with this. Grant Williams of Tennessee. He's one of the players I have on the watch list, on my Wooden watch list. 20.3 points per game. And he averages 7.5 rebounds per game, 3.6 assists per game. He also averages 1.1 steals per game and 1.7 blocks per game. But he is also averaging 2.1 turnovers per game. He can shoot 56% from the field and 84.6% from the free throw line. The only concern I have is the 36% from three-point land. Do you think Grant Williams of Tennessee is a favorite to win the Wooden Award? Do you vote that up or do you vote that down? You know what? I'm going to vote that one up because 20.3 points per game. Everybody's going to look at that. And he's a team player, and he knows how to get the job done. He can play, and he's a team guy, and he can get the job done. The next guy on my watch list, Admiral Schofield of Tennessee. He averages 16.7 points per game. And he's second on the team in rebounds on the team with 6.4 rebounds per game and 2.7 assists per game. He averages 1 steal per game. That's very important. He only averages 0.4 on blocks per game. He's also got 2.1 turnovers per game himself. He can also shoot 49% from the field, and he only shoots 71.8% from the free throw line and 42% from three-point land. Now, as far as Admiral Schofield goes, would you have him as a favorite to win the Wooden Award? Do you vote that one up or do you vote that one down? You know what? Considering the numbers at the free throw line and considering everything else, I'm going to vote that one down because if you stop and think about it, Admiral Schofield's 71.8% from the free throw line. That's going to get the attention of some people. And that's all there is to it. And I'm going to say this right now. Now, 16.7 points per game looks real good, and 6.4 rebounds per game looks great. But the 71.8% at the free throw line, that would shut a lot of people off right there. Bottom line. Next on my watch list, Shamorie Ponds of St. John's. 20.6 points per game, 4.2 rebounds per game, 5.7 assists per game. Those are very good numbers. 2.7 steals per game. He's only 0.3 in blocks per game. And he only averages 1.9 turnovers per game. He can shoot 45.8% from the field and 80.2% at the free throw line. And he shoots 38.8% from three-point land. Now, St. John's is third in the Big East with a 15-4 record. And they've been having some struggles within the conference. But considering Shamorie Ponds' numbers, just his numbers alone, do you think he would be a favorite to win the Wooden Award? Do you vote that one up or do you vote that one down? You know what? I'm going to vote that one up. I'm going to vote it up, and here's why. 20.6 points per game, 80.2% at the free throw line, and he only averages 1.9 turnovers per game. That number's a little bit shaky. And he also shoots 45.8% from the field. That is very good too. But the 1.9 turnovers per game, that kind of worries me just a little bit. And he also averages 5.7 assists per game. And I think that is why I would vote up St. John's Shamorie Ponds. He's brought St. John's back. Now, grant you, they're struggling a little bit. However, the Big East tournament's coming up. And I'm going to talk about the status of the conference races here in just a few minutes. So bear with us, so stay right here. Next on my wouldn't watch list in my top 5, Markus Howard of Marquette. 24.3 points per game. Very impressive. 4 rebounds per game, 4.4 assists per game, 1.1 steals per game, only 0.1 on the blocks per game, but 3.7 turnovers per game. Ouch. He shoots 42.7% from the field, 91.2% at the free throw line, and 43.4% from beyond the arc. And they're sitting right now, right behind Villanova in the Big East race. So, Markus Howard of Marquette, would you vote him up or would you vote him down as a winner, as a possible winner of the Wooden Award? You know what? I'm going to vote that one up. Despite the 3.7 turnovers per game, I'm going to vote that one up because he averages 24.3 points per game, and he also shoots 91% at the free throw line, and he shoots 43.4% from three-point land. That is why I'm voting him up. Now, yes, he does average 3.7 turnovers per game. That kind of hurts a little bit. But if you think about where Marquette is, right behind Villanova in the Big East race, and think about where Marquette was last year when they were a total nightmare. Now, all of a sudden, we could talk about Marquette taking away the Big East crown. And Markus Howard is the guy that I would want him. I would pick him as a possible Wooden Award winner. And that's all there is to it. Now, Tyus Battle of Syracuse. Listen to his numbers, and I'll let you decide. Tyus Battle's been averaging 18.2 points per game, 3.1 rebounds per game, 1.9 assists per game, 1.3 steals per game. He's only averaging 0.3 in blocks per game. Now, 1.7 turnovers per game is very good. He shoots 45.7% from the field and 79% from the free throw line, and he's only averaging 29.6% from three-point land. Do you vote that one up or do you vote that one down? Folks, this is a no-brainer to me. I got to vote that one down. Yes, the 1.7 turnovers per game is pretty good. And the 18.2 points per game is very good as well. But there's two things that would shut me up. There's a few things on here that would shut me off. The 1.9 assists per game, the 79% at the free throw line, and the 29.6% from three-point land. That's what got me to vote down. This was a no-brainer. Yes, Syracuse has picked themselves right back into the mix for the ACC crown. However, Tyus Battle is a great player. He's a great guy. He's a great player. But he needs to get some of these numbers up at the free throw line, and he's got to hit some threes to get this three-point average up. And if he can do that, I might change my mind. For right now, I am going to vote that one down. And that's all there is to it. And the bottom line is, I don't feel too good about Tyus Battle winning the Wooden Award. So Grant Williams, let's see. Grant Williams would be a guy I would pick, along with Shamorie Pons and Markus Howard. Those three I would take any day of the week, outside of Zion Williamson and R.J. Barrett. And the bottom line is, the Wooden Award, it would be an honor to win the John Wooden Award. And I'm going to tell you right now, there's some guys that can get the job done. And that's all there is to it. Okay, let's talk about the status of some of the conference races in college basketball at the moment. First, we're going to start it right out of the gate with the ACC. We have 5 teams that are 5-1 in conference play. Virginia, Duke, North Carolina, Syracuse, and Louisville. Now, what can you say? Virginia, they got 1 loss. Duke lost to Syracuse. North Carolina got humiliated by Louisville. Syracuse has 1 bad loss in conference play, along with Louisville as well. Now, as you know, Syracuse and Louisville play tomorrow. Duke should have an easy time against Georgia Tech. Syracuse has to battle against Virginia Tech tomorrow night. And they're sitting at 15-3 with a 4-2 record in conference play. They're right in the middle of it, too. NC State's loss to Louisville kind of hurt them a little bit. So, who is the favorite now to win the ACC? Right now, I would have Virginia, absolutely. Duke, absolutely. North Carolina, a little bit shaky, but I'll put them down as a yes for now. Syracuse, if Syracuse can win out and get some more quality wins, I think they're going to be in the NCAA tournament. They're really improved. Syracuse is improved. O'Shea Brissett, Tyus Battle and Company, Jim Boeheim has brought Syracuse back. But I think, can Syracuse possibly take it away? I'm going to say yes, and here's why. If you stop and think about it, Tyus Battle, he's really shown me a lot. He's shown me a lot this season. Now, I know I voted him down for the Wooden Award, but if you stop and think about this for just a second, look at what he's got. Tyus Battle, Elijah Hughes, O'Shea Brissett, those guys can get the job done. And I know they got a battle against Virginia Tech. But if Syracuse wins tomorrow, you better be thinking about Syracuse possibly jumping in and taking it away. Because you know Duke's got to play Virginia one more time. North Carolina's got to play Virginia. And you know Duke and North Carolina have 2 meetings still coming up in February. You know Duke and North Carolina, they got to face each other twice. So anything can happen, and it usually does. But I'm going to tell you right now, if anybody away from the Big Three, take Virginia, Duke, and North Carolina out of the conversation, don't be surprised if you hear me say that Syracuse and Louisville can jump in and take it away. I've seen it all happen. Now, I grant you, this was supposed to be a rebuilding year for Syracuse, but they've really shown me a lot. They've shown me that they can play with some of the big boys. Think about it. They upset number 1 Duke at Cameron Indoor. I haven't forgot about that. Louisville, they beat North Carolina. They humiliated North Carolina in their building. They ran North Carolina right out of their own. They ran North Carolina right out of their own gymnasium. But I'm going to tell you right now, I haven't forgot about Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech, they can still jump in and take it away. NC State, for right now, I'm going to flatline them. Because NC State, they're coming off of a bad loss. They're coming off of a loss to Louisville. They did have some struggles. And Kevin Keys said after that game, our chances of winning the ACC regular season crown may have gone up in smoke. Our best chances to win the ACC tournament. Well, I wouldn't quite say that yet, but I am going to flatline NC State for the time being. And that's all there is to it. Syracuse, Louisville, they're still in it. And that's all there is to it. But I'm going to say this, though. However, one of those 2 teams outside of Virginia, Duke, and North Carolina, Syracuse or Louisville, they could take it away. So I'm going to say a possible yes. But I'm going to be a little cautious. But I am going to put the yes, but I am going to flatline them both for the time being. And Virginia Tech, I'm going to flatline them for now. Because right now, Virginia Tech is coming off of a bad loss to North Carolina. And I grant you that. And they did lose badly to Virginia. I haven't forgot about that either. NC State, I have just plain flatline them for the time being, at the moment. And I'm going to say this right now. The ACC race is really going to heat up. Because, you know, Duke and North Carolina, they have 2 meetings coming up. Virginia's got to play, I think Virginia's got to play both Duke and North Carolina one more time. Syracuse has got Duke at the Carrier Dome coming up here, I think, next month. Louisville, if all these teams play hot, and if Duke and North Carolina, somebody loses along the way, you better think about this. Syracuse or Louisville can possibly jump in and take it away. I've been around long enough to know. And I'm going to tell you right now, the ACC, as usual, is red hot. And the ACC race is very, very crowded. And that's all I got to say about that. Okay, let's move on to the Big East for a minute. Now, Villanova, Marquette, those are the only 2 teams that really have a shot at winning the Big East regular season crown. Excuse me. There we go. Now I'm back. Villanova, Marquette. One of those 2 teams will win the Big East crown. Will win the Big East regular season. DePaul, cross them out. Butler, I've already crossed them out after the loss to Creighton. Xavier, you can basically cross them out. Their only hope is to win the conference tournament. St. John's, I'm going to flatline them because they're in trouble, and I'm going to cross them out because they can't win they're not going to be able to win the Big East regular season. Seton Hall, flatline them and cross them out because the thing is, I'm flatlining them because they've been having some struggles, but I'm crossing them out because they're not going to be able to win the Big East regular season. Right now, the really only two teams that have a shot of winning the Big East regular season are Villanova and Marquette. And Marquette has really shown me a lot. Markus Howard, he can get the job done. Villanova, Phil Booth, Colin Gillespie, and Phil Pascal, they can get the job. Phil Booth, they can get the job done. They've shown me a lot this year. Marquette, Markus Howard, that's all you need to know. Now, grant you, Seton Hall has really improved. Seton Hall, their big win over Kentucky early in the season, that's really helped them. St. John's, Shamorie Pons, both those guys are great players, but St. John's and Seton Hall are struggling. Yes, St. John's is 15-4 during the regular season, but they're only 3-4 in conference play. They've got some bad losses. Seton Hall only 12-7, 3-4 in conference play. Their non-conference schedule kind of hurt them a little bit. That's all there is to it. Butler, cross them out. You can cross them out after losing to Creighton tonight. Xavier, only 11-9 on the regular season, but they're 3-4 in conference play. Cross them out, unless they win the Big East tournament. Now, let's talk about the Big 12 for a few minutes. You know Kansas has got a big matchup coming up against Kentucky tomorrow. But I want to talk about the Kansas and the Big 12 only. We got a bunch of teams with a shot at still winning the Big 12 championship. Winning the Big 12 regular season. Kansas, Kansas State, Baylor, Texas Tech, Iowa State, TCU, Oklahoma cautiously. Now Kansas, you got to have them down as a favorite. Lagerald Vick, Devon Dotson, Dietrich Lawson, great players. Kansas State, Barry Brown, he's really shown me a lot. Baylor, they have an outside chance of winning the Big 12 regular season. Texas Tech, Jared Culvert, I'm going to flatline them for now. Iowa State, coming off that loss against Kansas, Mario Shayok, great. Those guys, Tucker, Shayok, great players. As a result of the loss to Kansas, I'm going to flatline them for now. The reason why I'm flatlining them instead of crossing them out is because Iowa State still has a shot at winning the Big 12 regular season. TCU, 3-3 in conference play, 14-4 overall. I'm kind of on the fence of crossing them out or flatlining them. So for the time being, I am going to flatline them. TCU coach Jamie Dixon has said, our team's got to play better. I got good players, but we just haven't been showing the hustle. That's all there is to it. Oklahoma, no disrespect to Lon Kruger. He's brought the Oklahoma program back from last year. But I got to cross them out because they are 3-4 in conference play. And some of those losses are bad conference losses. And that's all there is to it. Now, if you think about the season, what's happened so far, Kansas, Kansas State, and Baylor, those would be the three best teams that have a shot at winning the Big 12 title. Now, Kansas is barely hanging on despite no Udaka Azubuike. That's very important. But don't forget, Texas Tech, they can still jump in and take it away. Iowa State, they can still jump in and take it away. TCU, an outside chance. Since it is an outside chance of taking it away, but I am going to go ahead and put the flat line and the cross out. The reason why I'm doing that is because TCU still has some work to do. That's all there is to it. TCU coach Jamie Dixon has even said, our team still has a lot to do. And that's all there is to it. Right now, if we can just get ourselves back into this battle, we have a shot. And that's all there is to it, my friends. That's all there is to it. And I'm going to say right now, Texas Tech, coming off of a bad loss to Kansas State, that kind of hurt them. Iowa State, a loss to Kansas 80-76, they have a chance to get themselves and pick themselves right back up as well. The season's not over yet, folks. It's January 25th, and we're just about less than a month and a half. We're just a little over about a month away. I know it's about a month and a half away, but it's not too early to be talking about the conference tournaments. It's not too early to be thinking about March Madness. And that's all there is to it. A lot of people have asked me, Scott, why do you think about March Madness now? The reason why I'm thinking about it now is because the seeding for the tournament is going to be very, very important. And the bottom line is, there's still a lot of games left to go. Because you know Kansas has to face Iowa State one more time. You know Texas Tech has got to face some of these teams one more time. But anybody can come out of the pack. Now Kansas, Kansas State, and Baylor are the 3 odds-on favorites. However, think about this. Texas Tech, Iowa State, and possibly TCU can jump in and take it away. I know Kansas has won it for like up teen times in a row. Is this the year that the rest of the pack wins the Big 12? Could this be the year that somebody comes out of the pack and knocks Kansas off the top of the mountain in the Big 12? We'll have to wait and see on that. But I'm saying this now. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm saying this now. Without Udaka Azubuike, the Big 12 race has really been thrown into a tailspin. And the battle, and if you look at the conference for yourself, you're seeing why it's been thrown into an absolute tailspin. Okay, let's move on and talk about the Big Ten. The Big Ten Conference. There's really only 5 teams with a shot of winning the Big Ten regular season crown. Michigan, Michigan State, Maryland, Purdue, Wisconsin. Right now, I got Michigan State as a favorite. Michigan, if anything happens to Michigan State along the way, they can jump in and take it away. Michigan State in their victory over Iowa, Nick Ward, 26 points, I think like 11 or 12 rebounds. He had a double-double in that game. And Cassius Winston, one of the most dangerous players in college basketball right now. As far as Michigan goes, I just saw Xavier Simpson take care of business along with Charles Matthews and Ingus Brizadakis. They took care of business. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, Michigan, I got them down as a favorite to win the Big Ten crown. They can take it away. Maryland, they know how to hit threes. Some of those guys, they've been averaging like almost 45-50% from three-point land. They have a shot. Now, this is where I get into I'm on a little bit on the fence. Purdue, they have one great player in Carson Edwards. They got some good players, but Carson Edwards is the star of that team. If he goes down and he gets hurt, Purdue's sunk. That's all there is to it. So for now I know Carson Edwards is healthy, but if he gets hurt, they're in trouble. But for right now, as a precaution, I am going to go ahead and flatline Purdue. Because they are only 13-6 overall. Now, I grant you they're 6-2 in conference play, but they got some bad losses. Wisconsin, they upset Michigan last Saturday. Hee-haw. What a day. Congrats on that. But Wisconsin's schedule doesn't get any easier. Now, Wisconsin's 13-6 overall and 5-3 in conference play. I'm going to flatline them for now. They got to get some quality wins. They got to get some wins. They got to play well and hope that Michigan State, Michigan, and Maryland fall apart somewhere. Purdue's kind of in the same boat as Wisconsin is, in my opinion. Now, Ethan Happ's a great player. Not to take anything away from him. However, Wisconsin's they have some bad conference losses, and Marquette's one of them back in December. I haven't forgot about that. So right now, Michigan State. Think about this for Michigan State. Cassius Winston, Nick Ward, 2 of the best players right now. Joshua Langford, when he's in good shape, he's a great player himself. That's why I got Michigan State that's why I put a check mark and saying Michigan State is a favorite to win the Big Ten championship. Michigan, I just watched Charles Matthews and Xavier Simpson take care of business along with Ingus Brizadakis. Those three guys right there, they did a lot of damage to Indiana tonight. Maryland, I got them as an outside chance. I got them down as a favorite, but I am going to go ahead and put a flat line next to them just because I think Michigan and Michigan State are just too good. Is it that the rest of the Big Ten is bad, or is it because Michigan State and Michigan are good? I think it's a combination of both. Wisconsin, yes, they did prove that Michigan was overrated, and Michigan almost threw a game away against Minnesota the other night, but they came back to beat Indiana tonight just a little while ago. Now, as far as the Big Ten race, if it comes down to Michigan State or Michigan, Michigan State would be the better bet because they got Cassius Winston, Nick Ward, Joshua Langford when he's healthy. Michigan State coach Tom Izzo said, I have a great group of players that can get the job done. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to be very interesting to see how the season goes the rest of the way. And now, let's talk about the SEC race. Let's move on to the Southeast Conference for a few minutes. But before I do, all right, in the SEC, we have 5 teams that are mathematically alive to win the SEC regular season crown. Tennessee, a definite. LSU, I'm going to flatline them for now. Kentucky would be the better bet. South Carolina, 5-1 in conference play, 10-8 overall. I'm going to cross them out for the time being. Ole Miss, they're coming off of a very bad loss to Alabama. And if they lose to Iowa State tomorrow, they're sunk. Now, Ole Miss cannot afford any more losses in conference play. Now, I grant you, the Iowa State-Ole Miss game is a non-conference game tomorrow. I am aware of that. However, another bad loss to a team like Iowa State, Ole Miss's chances of making the tournament are going to be sunk. So I'm going to put a cross out and a flat line, just for the time being, just to be fair. South Carolina, I'm going to cross them out because they had a bad non-conference schedule. Kentucky and Tennessee would be the 2 best teams that can win the SEC crown. Think about it for Tennessee. Grant Williams, Admiral, Schofield. The 2 best players that Tennessee has. I have picked Grant Williams. If it came down to Grant Williams and Admiral Schofield for the Wooden Award, I'd go with Williams any day of the week. 20.3 points per game. He's really shown me a lot. He shoots 84.6% from the free throw line. I already mentioned all that. But my thing is, Tennessee has 2 great players. Kentucky has about 3. They got like 4 of them. P.J. Washington, Reed Travis, Tyler Hero, Keldon Johnson. Look out for those guys on Saturday. That's all there is to it. But Kentucky and Tennessee would be the best bets. Now, I grant you LSU's really sitting number 2 in the SEC race. I'm going to put a flat line, but I am going to give them a shot. I'll give them a shot. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. However, I'm being cautious, though, because anything can happen, and it usually does. Now, those are the conference races. Now, I have the latest bracketology report and the bubble watch. Here are the latest changes to the bracketology report, and this happened early this morning. I know it's technically early this morning here in the eastern part of the United States. It's about 3 till midnight. I am aware of that. In the East region, Mississippi State has dropped down to the 8 line. They're a bad loss to Kentucky. Iowa State has moved up to the 5 line. If they can beat Ole Miss, they can jump higher. Stony Brook, welcome aboard. You're on the 13 line this week. The Houston Cougars, Kelvin Sampson. He's turned that team around in the American Conference. Kelvin Sampson, they're on the 3 line this week. In South Dakota State, you guys are on the 14 line. And just a quick FYI, those 2 teams would meet in the first round if the tournament started tomorrow. Cincinnati, the Bearcats are back up on the 7 line. George Mason, welcome aboard. You guys are on the 15 line. Don't think for one second I forgot about 13 years ago back in 2006 when you were an 11 seed and you went all the way to the Final Four. I haven't forgot about that. In the West region, Louisville's up on the 4 line this week. Texas State's up on the 13 line. Those 2 teams would meet in the first round if the tournament were to start tomorrow. Loyola Chicago has dropped down to the 14 line. Sister Jean, you need to start praying. You need to start singing all the Hail Marys that you can think of to get Loyola Chicago back. In Ryder, Ryder's moved up to the 15 line this week. Now, in the South region, NC State's dropped from the 7 line to the 8 line this week. Old Dominion, they are welcome aboard. You guys are now on the 12 line. Buffalo barely escaped against Kent earlier tonight. They've dropped down to the 6th line. Bowling Green the Bowling Green Eagles out of the Mid-America Conference. Welcome. You guys are now on the 14 line. In the all-important Midwest region, welcome, Cal State Bakersfield. Welcome. You guys are on the 16 line this week. Wisconsin, a nice move up to the 5 line after an upset victory over Michigan. Lipscomb, you guys are first-time visitors. You guys are now on the 12 line. And if the tournament were to start tomorrow, you two would face off in the first round. Texas Tech, a bad loss to Kansas State, has dropped them down to the 4 line, and Northern Kentucky this week has moved up to the 13 line. And if the tournament were to start tomorrow, those two teams will be facing off in the first round. Auburn, a bad loss to Kentucky last Saturday, has dropped you down to the 6th line. UC Irvine, you guys, welcome aboard. You guys are on the 14 line. And Kansas State has moved up, I think up to the 7 line or the 6th line. I'm not sure. I forgot to write that number down, and I do apologize for that. And now, the all-important Bubble Watch. This is according to Joe Lunardi. The last 4 byes into the field. Ohio State, 2-5 in conference play. You guys started red hot, and you've lost 5 in a row. Ohio State's got to get some wins in conference play, or otherwise we're going to be an afterthought. And the way we're playing right now in conference play, we're going to be lucky to get out of the first round of the Big Ten tournament, if lucky. Now, I realize it's a young team. I understand that. But they got some work to do. UCF, you guys got to get some wins in the American Athletic Conference. I understand the Houston Cougars and the Cincinnati Bearcats are red hot right now. I do realize that. The other 2 teams of the last 4 byes are in St. John's. You guys got to get some wins. Shamorie Ponds. Can't do it all, people. Seton Hall. Their only saving grace right now is a victory over Kentucky. That's their saving grace. The last 4 in, Arizona State. Got to get some wins in the Big 12. Out of the Pac-12, I mean. Minnesota. You're going to have to win out and win the Big 10. That's your only hope. Virginia Commonwealth, you need some help too. Alabama, the football school. Your upset victory the other day, your upset win was the only thing that's keeping you in the tournament. You're one of the last 4 in. Now, the first 4 out are Florida. You got to win the SEC crown. That's all there is to it. Butler, you guys just lost tonight to Creighton. I'll probably be switching you to the next 4 out before we're all done. Baylor, the Baylor Bears. Why isn't nobody talking anything good about Baylor? Why are they one of the first 4 out? I think they should be at least safe in the tournament. After some big victories, they're right in the middle of a Big 12 battle, for crying out loud. In Arizona, you got to win some games in the Pac-12. And the next 4 out, just FYI, are San Francisco, Utah State, Creighton. They got a big win over Butler tonight, so they might move up to the first 4 out. We don't know yet. And Temple is the last team as part of the next 4 out. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for my closing thoughts on this night. A lot of people have asked me, Scott, do you really crunch the numbers? I do. I look at it, when I do these shows, I look at everything. I look at the numbers. And everybody's been asking me, Scott, and somebody did ask me this question the other day, who do you think will win the Big Ten championship? I had to say either Michigan State or Michigan. I don't know, Ohio State Nation's not very happy with me right now. I realize that. But I had to go with Michigan State or Michigan with what I've seen. And somebody approached me on the street. Somebody actually approached me on the street earlier today and asked me, Scott, do you really want Michigan or Michigan State to win the Big Ten title? I said no. I didn't want them, but I picked them because it's going to come down to one of those two to win the Big Ten championship. That's all there is to it. And I told them, and I asked them why. I said, think about it. For Michigan State, they have Nick Ward, Cassius Winston, Joshua Langford when he's healthy. Yeah, I know now I realize Langford's had some injury issues. And I do realize that. However, I will say this, though. For Michigan, Charles Matthews, Ingus Brazadakis, and Xavier Simpson, those three guys there are the three best that John Beilein has. And Tom Izzo of Michigan State has said, we have a great team, so does Michigan. And John Beilein said the same thing. And ladies and gentlemen, I will say this, though, in all fairness. One of those two teams will win the Big Ten championship. As far as the Big East goes, it's only a two-team race, Villanova and Marquette. The ACC race is so crowded, I couldn't even fit. Or let me put it to you this way: the ACC race is so crowded, not even my dad, not even I couldn't even get into the middle of it. But as far as the SEC goes, it's going to come down to Kentucky and Tennessee. There's no doubt in my mind. No doubt. In all fairness, we'll see what happens tomorrow. We'll see how everything goes. If we have upsets along the way, we'll have upsets. If not, well then, there's not much we can do about it. But the bottom line is, with everything on the line on Saturday, you'll see what I mean on this Saturday morning. And we have a long day ahead of us tomorrow. And we got a long day ahead of me. I have a long day ahead of me. I'll be back here tomorrow. I'll be back here tonight, probably tomorrow night at 11 or 11:30 to bring you up to date as what has happened. But for tomorrow, enjoy the action. I know I'm going to, and I hope you do too. And I'm running out of voice, so I'm just going to go ahead and wrap it up tonight. And thank you so much for being with me. All right, folks, I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here. I want to thank you guys so much for being with me here tonight. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. My name is Scott Manning. All you have to do is scroll down, type my name, scroll down, look for this pretty face, and you'll see all the sports videos I have done so far. I want to thank you guys so much for being with me. You guys have a great night. Thank you so much for being with me, and God bless. Good night, everybody, and thank you.